I had just received an email from Harvard that would determine the direction of the rest of my life. I was sitting in an office in my high school with a group of my friends preparing for an alumni event that night. When I received the email, I left the room to read it alone and compose myself before coming back to my friends. I steeled myself, took a deep breath, and opened up the email. Congratulations! I leapt into the air and did a fist bump, and I turned around, and directly behind me, one of my friends was recording the entire thing. He had followed me out of the room,
Oh,
confident that I was going to get in, more confident than I was. And so I have that recording of that special moment. The rest of that evening was an absolute dream. My friends were bragging about me to all the alums. They were telling them I had just gotten into Harvard. I was treated like a celebrity that night. It was so hard to believe that I would soon be at my lowest as a direct result of the success of that night. My life has been shaped by a series of pivotal moments and decisions that I've made. Today, I'm going to share a few of those with you all in the hopes that it may help you on your own journey towards flourishing. My perfectionism started early, 5th grade to be exact, when my school introduced the concept of A pluses. I never looked back. From 5th grade through senior spring of high school, I got all A pluses every quarter. So I set the expectation for myself that perfection was not just possible, but expected. And so when it was time for me to take my standardized tests to apply for college, I had that attitude going in. And I delivered. I got a perfect score on my PSAT, my ACT, and my SAT. I was told that I was one in a million, probably because no one smart enough to get a perfect score on one of those tests was dumb enough to take the other one after having gotten a perfect score. But I was putting immense pressure on myself to be perfect, and that caused a lot of anxiety, stress, and migraines. But it also led to my acceptance at Harvard. I was thrilled about that, but it only lasted a week and was followed by a deep depression. I had achieved my driving goal for over a decade of my life. What was next? What else was there? And so when I went to Harvard, I focused my freshman year on talking to my classmates to understand what motivated them so that I could figure out what motivated me. After that experience, I decided that 3 things would motivate me for the rest of my life. The first is people and relationships. I wanted to meet as many different people and build as many strong relationships as I possibly could. The second is diversity of experiences. I wanted to try everything the world had to offer, challenge myself, push myself out of my comfort zone. And the last thing was I wanted to leave the world a better place than I found it. I wanted to make a major impact at scale. So now that I had my North Star, it was time to work towards that. I just didn't know what career path was the best way of doing that. Luckily, my freshman year at Harvard, I heard about a job called management consulting. Management consulting was described to me as the job that was best for people who had no idea what they wanted to do with their life, but wanted to move quickly in their careers. Perfect, sign me up. So I directed the rest of my college experience to achieving internships in management consulting. It was also at this time that I started drinking socially for the first time. I realized very quickly that by picking up a drink, I could finally put down the immense burden of perfectionism that I had put on myself. And so throughout college, it was a series of working hard during the week and then picking up a drink to put down that pressure of perfectionism on the weekend. My hard work paid off as I got internship offers at all three of the top management consulting firms, McKinsey, Bain, and BCG. I was again the only one in my year to do this. I worked at Bain for several years, but after some soul searching and an externship at a startup called BetterUp, I realized that impact was not enough for me. It had to be a differentiated impact. I didn't want to feel like a cog in a machine that was making an impact. I wanted to feel like change happened because of me uniquely. And so I decided to attend Stanford for my MBA to learn the skills that I needed to start a company. The problem with this idea of differentiated impact, though, was that it seemed to require going it alone. It required this solo loneliness. And so as I pushed myself harder and harder, I started relying on alcohol more and more until I needed it to relax. I felt so much shame alone in my room every night, drinking myself to sleep after my day of work so I could relax. The only variation, night after night, was whether it was wine or whiskey that I was using to knock myself out. This hole of sadness, shame, isolation, and alcohol combined to create a black hole that I couldn't see an escape from. I couldn't live with alcohol, but I couldn't live without it. After being too depressed to get out of bed for a few days, I finally decided this was it. It was time to end my life. After a day of drinking to work up the courage, I went to my bed and took a sheet off of the bed. I started to tie it into a noose, but luckily I was too drunk to be able to do it effectively. So I went to my medicine cabinet, pulled out a bottle of pills, and started taking Tylenol one after the other. After a few minutes, everything went to black. I was rescued by my guardian angel. My partner, Jess, had been getting erratic texts from me all evening. She was at a dinner with her friends and left the dinner concerned because of what I was texting her. She came to me, stopped me in the middle of what I was doing, took me to the Stanford hospital, where I spent the next 10 days. I emerged from the hospital a new person, sober. I had taken my first step in letting someone else in on my journey. I had felt so much shame for so long that it was incredible when Jess forced her way in and I was able to fully bear myself to her. She was the first person who really taught me how to love myself despite all of the shame that I felt. As I grew in my sobriety, I realized that I wanted my differentiated impact on the world to be helping give kids better coping skills to be able to handle the challenges of life better than I did. And so after many years of preparation, I decided to start Inner Peak, a mental wellness platform for high school and college students that provides personalized 24/7 support and resilient skill building and coping skill building opportunities. I went that path alone for a year, which, as someone who's not a technical founder, it's very hard to make progress when you're trying to build something alone. So I had to bring in someone else, and that someone else is my co-founder, Ben. Ben is a friend of mine from our time together at Harvard. We reconnected through a LinkedIn post of all things. And when he first joined the team, he joined as our founding engineer. And I had a really hard time letting him in fully. Letting him in started at our Day to Breathe in February. We took time together to have these conversations about what our vision was, Inner Peak had started as my vision, but that was the day that it became our vision. I could not have gotten to where I am today without Ben. So as I let others into my life, I have also learned to let in God. I really resonate with Alcoholics Anonymous' definition of God as a power greater than yourself. To me, God is my purpose, making a differentiated impact at scale. Without God, without my purpose, life is empty. It is God, it is purpose that gets me up each day working through the challenges of starting a company. So where am I today on my journey? I'm certainly farther along than I was before, but there's no end in sight. A prior version of myself would have been worried about that. But I've learned that I'm happiest when I'm living in the moment. Anxiety is caused by living in a dark future, depression by living in a dark past. So I choose to live in the moment and face my challenges head on. I choose to maintain my sobriety, and I choose to dedicate my life to helping all people reach their inner peaks.